I'm gonna mute myself.
All right. Hey there, and welcome back to another Cup of Joe Live. Thanks so much for joining. As you can see, we finally got a logo up there, so we are officially legit. Thank you guys so much. Today, we'll be talking about B2B. There we go, B2B video marketing. So as always, if you've got any questions, any comments, drop them in the comments, and we're happy to answer it. Today, I have a special guest who'll be joining me. Let's see, there he is. This is Jeremiah Su, who is the chief cheerleader at CV Group here in Singapore. Thanks so much for joining, Jeremiah.
My pleasure. I just unmuted myself.
There we go. All good, my friend. So, like I said, the reason I want to catch up with you is you are doing a lot of cool stuff with video production, and I want to get your thoughts on, B2B videos, because I think a lot of times people think video marketing, they think B2C, they think those cool, inspiring Nike ads, but I think more people really struggle on the B2B side. So once again, I really would love to get your thoughts on what are some of the things you're doing, what are some of the things you've seen working well, and then we'll talk about some of the pitfalls that people are making when it comes to B2B marketing. So maybe you can share some of the B2B stuff you guys are working on currently.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm still trying to figure out my camera because, I'm so jealous that your camera looks so good and then I'm blurry as hell. Oh, okay. I finally got it working.
There we go.
Thank you for inviting me on the Cup of Joe. I have my cup of Captain Crunch right here. Yum. And
there we go.
Some of the things that we're currently working on in terms of B2B content would be things like okay, just let me just give a super rough introduction about myself. Hello, I'm Jeremiah. I'm the chief cheerleader of CP Group, and in CVP Group we are a creative media powerhouse, and we do a lot of content in the form of videos, photos, and animations. Now, some of the exciting things that we're currently working on would be B2B sphere, like Siemens, even KPMG or Lazada, and when we talk about B2B videos, right? Wow, he's putting his branding, I also got to do it too. B2B videos basically can come in a form of maybe recap or highlights or even capabilities or even review videos. So what am I at the liberty of sharing right now? Probably I can talk about CBRE, okay, real estate.
Okay.
Now, CBRE as a company, their customers are not individual consumers. They are mega organizations, right? Because they do facility management, they do brokerage of buying and selling of properties, and the kind of videos that they usually do are really capability videos, talking about different departments, whether is it facility management, whether is it real estate, whether is it landlord or leasing. And they talk about, okay, what have we done? Why are we good at what we're doing? What is the value we can bring to your organization if you were to engage us as a firm or as an organization to help you find your forever home as an office, So these are just some of the case studies of B2B videos that we have done before or are at liberty to share, So
yeah. No, it's no. I think we've done some work with Cushman & Wakefield, which is also in the commercial real estate space, and I think one of the challenges, particularly for those in commercial real estate, is when you talk about videos, you talk about visuals. It's not the same when you're doing like sexy kind of like home interior and you have like some cool space to thing. A lot of the times it's buildings, it's office spaces like that. So how do you make something like office spaces and buildings interesting enough that people in that space would actually want to watch a video about it?
Okay, that is a very good question, Joe. So when we talk about let's talk about videos in general, right? Or even content. Whenever brands, right, they want to create a piece of content, whether it is in the form of a video, photo, or animation, it really meant to fulfill two things, okay? Whether is it for internal circulation or external circulation. Because once you understand the purpose of the video, the treatment, and the end product, the delivered product, and the intended outcome is very, very different. Okay.
Okay.
So when we talk about internal circulation for B2B brands, it's really about culture, it's really about teamwork, it's really about probably either top-down messages or bottom-up messages.
Mm-hmm.
Top down being like the CEO said, like, oh, you know what, this year we have made this much, we have gotten X amount of new clients, and we are very happy of our growth, something like that. And then bottom up would be maybe a profile video of your receptionist, of your office level cleaner or helper, you know, to actually
Mm-hmm.
talk about the organization from a human point of view. Now,
Mm-hmm.
external videos is what you are asking about, you know, when we talk about, oh, how can we make real estate sexy? How can we make buildings, you know, selling buildings or even products and services that are not meant for individual consumers?
Mm-hmm.
That is really for external push, right?
Yeah.
What I always share with the brands that I work with, right, it is that you never ever talk about your product or your service. Okay. Yes, you might be in real estate. Yes, you might be in building management. You might even be in accounting, finance, recruitment, right? These are B2B services, but you never talk about them. What you talk about, right, is the emotion or the values that come with this service. So a good example for you, right? Whether is it Cushman and Wakefield, you know, I did some videos for them as well, but to sell their buildings, right? Or even CBRE or Mackenzie, you know, these kind of real estate firms. I always tell them to not sell your building, but sell the either the convenience, the emotion, or what they can get. So
Mm-hmm.
a very, very recent project that we did was for Guaco Land. Okay, they're actually building this place right smack in the middle of Bugis called Midtown, Guaco Land Midtown. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a mix of residential and also commercial and also corporate properties. It's almost like a mega hub of facility.
Mm-hmm.
When we created the video, the idea that we sold to them is we don't even talk about your building because nobody gives a shit about your building. It is the truth. Okay,
Yeah.
even if you're a consumer, individual consumer, or a corporate, what these people want to learn is that how your building will add convenience, add value, or have an impact in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the idea that we saw is okay, let's talk about the surrounding facilities or the surrounding places around Midtown. So we talked about the food, we talked about the accessibility, we talked about the places you can visit. And what we are actually selling is not the property, but the lifestyle that comes with the property. You know, if you
Mm-hmm.
want to have certain standing, if you want to be seen as somebody who lives right in the smack in the heart of the city, that is where you should be living at, or that is
Mm-hmm.
where your business should be operating out from. Okay, now another idea would be like CBRE. They wanted to sell certain buildings. Okay, I can share about it because it's really public knowledge. So, for example, they are selling a building all the way in Tuas. I tell them, okay, don't talk about the building, talk about the area. What do these business owners get if they were to purchase the building? It is almost like think of it, an analogy, okay? Think of it like this. It is almost like a marriage. When you marry your wife, Joe, you're not just marrying an individual person, okay?
Yes.
You're marrying into the family, the mother-in-law, the father-in-law, the nieces, the nephews, the dogs, the cats, the parrots, the birds. So same thing. When you're selling a product or service, right, you're not just looking at it from one point of view. You're actually looking at it from a holistic point of view.
Mm.
So to wrap up, this is such a longest answer for your simple question. Okay, if you are a professional service, whether you're doing PR, you know, citizenship, finance, accounting, real estate, like I mentioned, don't see it as selling to just one individual. See it as you're selling to a group, and always sell the emotion or the lifestyle or an intangible that comes together with your product.
Mm. There
I
we
hope that
go.
answers the question.
Yes, it does. I think you bring us some really good points, and I want to recap. One of which, and I think that I'm constantly telling my clients this, is no one cares about your products or services. No one cares about it but you. So when you think about that, you start thinking about it from the customer's point of view. And you bring up another good point in terms of, B2C brands do this very well. So I was asking my business school students, what does a Chanel, what does Dior sell? And they all said they sell a lifestyle. No one said they sell a product. They said they sell a lifestyle. So it's interesting to see B2B brands taking that same analogy and applying to, for example, a residential or an office building. It's the same kind of concept. One thing that I want to circle back to, which I think is quite interesting, and I want to find out how we can do it for B2B, is emotions. How do you inject emotions into something? You talked a little bit about commercial real estate, but then you also mentioned like, KPMG, McKinsey, and some of the, consulting firms. How do you inject, emotions in something that is traditionally quite reserved and, a little bit more formal? How do you make that interesting and engaging from an emotional point of view? You're muted, my friend.
I I realized I was talking, then that big sign to say that mic is muted. Okay, sorry. That's the fun thing about live conversations, right? You get to see us mess up and fuck up. But okay, I have two case studies that I actually like to share when we talk about emotional pull and having that hook when it comes to professional services. Now, the first one that I really resonate with is KPMG. So KPMG Canada actually released an internal video, okay, mind you, internal video to talk about inclusion, diversity, and empowerment. Okay, so they actually had a photography session where they invited staff from all departments, all levels, and all different walks of life to do a photo shoot, and they got them to draw what they stand for on their bodies. Whether is it like inclusion, then you get like a marker, not a marker, okay, it's a, what do you call it, mascara, basically a crayon, to draw on their body, like, okay, I believe in inclusion or diversity, I believe in equal rights. And that was really just an internal video that was meant to showcase the culture of the brand, how strong as an organization they are.
Yeah.
But then you see, right, even though the purpose was meant for internal circulation, that can be used for external publication, because the emotions that was portrayed in the video is very strong, and because it is fronted by the frontline service people, or the people who actually make up the DNA of KPMG, all the staff, all the from different senior levels, from executive all the way until C levels, right? So they actually pushed it out, and then those people who actually took part, they actually shared it on their LinkedIn to say, wow, you know what? This is the first time I've ever worked in an organization that actually cared about my opinion, about my voice. And because they included so many people, all these ground level people started sharing it. And then for an external push, right, from a B2B branding point of view, they were selling their culture, and they were doing a recruitment drive to find people who actually are aligned with KPMG's culture. But another element was that they actually showed other companies that, hey, in KPMG, this is what we stand for, this is what we believe in. And if you work with us, these are the kind of values that you will see in action. And I thought, like, that's genius, because maybe they didn't intend for an internal video to have such a impact externally, but it's clever. Okay, so that's the first case study. Now the second case study, right, when we're talking about emotional pull and emotional connection, CBRE as a company, it's really about facility management, right? It's really about making your experience or your journey when procuring a new office space smooth and convenient. So they are not selling brokerage or facility managed, they're selling convenience. If you were to onboard with CBRE, you will get a 5-star hotel experience for a corporate company. So with that in mind, right, the kind of content they then created, it was nothing to talk about, oh, we have so many departments, we have 50 staff servicing you, we have this, that. No. They actually create their content from a POV of a 5-star hotel. So the videos that they create, right, it's not about like how many offices they have, how many meeting rooms they have. It is literally like, take for this, for example, you're watching a Shangri-La video, right?
Yeah.
All the visuals that you see is like, wow, you get greeted by someone at the reception, someone warm, someone smiling, someone happy. And then when you go to your to eat, you have a wide selection of food, and then right at the end, you realize that you're not watching a hotel video, but you're watching a office services video.
Mm.
Now, when we go for a vacation, we always have that emotional connection to the place that we go to because of the experience, right? Same with office space. If you work with CBRE, you get this same experience, this positive experience, and that is where the emotional connection it forms. So it's no longer a very transactional kind of B2B connection. It is very relational.
Yeah.
So to wrap up, another longest answer to your very, very simple question, right? For B2B videos, people need to stop looking at content or relationships as transactional, but look at it as relational with
Yes.
empathy. So I hope that answers your question, Joe.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it sums up one of the things that I found, particularly on the copywriting side. We focus on the copywriting for B2B, is focusing on the human element. And you mentioned, focusing on, the helpers or the people at the ground level who are doing their job, sharing their story. I found a similar thing when I was doing internal comms for a hospitality chain when I came to Singapore, is we looked at the most popular, stories that we did. And one of which was a chef that had been working with a company for 30 years. So he started as a dishwasher, worked his way up. Now he was the head of chef in one of the 5-star hotels. And so, they were celebrating him on his 30th anniversary with the company. And I think that was by far one of the most popular series we did. Going back to what you were saying, it was a, internal communications piece, but there's no reason we couldn't have leveraged that and featured that on our external communications and social media at the time as well. So I think that is a good way of thinking about it, is actually work closer with your internal comms, because that's really their job, is to find out these stories, celebrate these people. But I think beyond that, external comms can play a huge role in terms of, highlighting them on, their global pages or even their regional pages. I think that'll make a much bigger impact for those who are being featured. Yes, I see you smiling. All right. Now, what are some of the practical things? You mentioned, emotions and stuff like that, but what are some of the practical things, some step-by-step things that B2B brands can do now to inject some of that creativity and emotional element which you're talking about?
Okay, what I would always suggest, right, whenever it comes to creating content that has empathy, really is to firstly know why you do what you do. So your purpose of intent and your objective has to be crystal clear. Don't create a video just because everyone else is doing it. Don't create a TikTok because it is trending. Okay? If you do that, then I can guarantee you that your content is going to fail, because without vision, your content will perish. I am quoting, the Bible, but it is true. Without vision or without a purpose, your content will fail. So really understand what is your objective and what is your purpose of intent, what you hope to achieve, and what is your desired ideal outcome when you create. So that's the first thing. Second thing is right now I'm trying my best to multitask to share this LinkedIn live while I'm actually talking live. Okay, the second thing really is to understand your audience. What do I mean by that? When you create content, right, you need to understand that not all content is created equal, and not all platforms are created equal for all content. So if you're trying to target the young, okay, when I say young, probably younger than us, okay, Joe.
I'd say, yeah, I don't fit it anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe the age range of 18 to 24. Okay, you probably won't push it on Facebook, and you definitely won't push it on CNA, Channel News Asia, right? You'll probably push it on platforms like YouTube or even TikTok or Instagram. And if your target audience for your specific type of content would be the older generation, then yeah, of course, Facebook will work, because different target audiences have different viewing patterns, and the way they consume media is very, very different. Back then when I was growing up, when we talk about knowledge acquisition, we wanted to find out something. I would always say, "Oh, let's Yahoo it." right? That's
Yeah.
probably our gen. And then the next generation, they started to say, oh, let's Google it, right?
Mm.
But now the young ones, they're saying things like, let's YouTube it. And I'm like, wow, that is 3 generations of evolution, So, yeah, understand your target audience. So
Mm.
it really, the two things would be what is your objective and purpose of intent, and understanding your audience.
Yes, I completely agree with you, and I want to echo that. Is I'm constantly telling clients, don't create content just for the sake of creating content. Like you were saying, just because you see, a CBRE doesn't mean you have to create something just like that if it doesn't make sense for your brand and there's not an objective behind it. Now, with that said, the objective does not always have to be transactional, like you said. I think that's when people start thinking objectives, they're thinking, okay, how many leads can I generate? How many sales can I generate? When that's not always the objective. So I think that's something that I really want to highlight people, because particularly in senior management who are not in marketing, they just see the bottom line and they think, okay, you're creating a video, you're creating a piece of content, what kind of sales or leads impact is that going to have in the company? And that's not always the case. That's not to say that it shouldn't, have an impact further down the road, but that shouldn't have a direct impact. So think about attribution and think that how that's going to have an impact, how that influences sales. Not necessarily, drives it or impacts it, but influences it is something important. Another interesting point, obviously, is understanding your customer. And I was talking about this yesterday with my class. And I just polled them and I said, how many of you are on Facebook? There's like 30 or 40 kids in the class. I call them kids. They're watching. They're about, early, mid-20s. And none of them were on Facebook. It was an entire classroom. They just looked at me like, what are you talking about? So I was like, okay, well, I need to restart. I was like, how many of you are on TikTok and Instagram? They go. So I said, okay, well, if, for example, we were to do this on Facebook, we probably would have missed out on that generation. So maybe one of these days we'll have to do this TikTok live, but for the time being, we'll have to be on LinkedIn. Yeah, those are some really, really good points. The audience is tipping in too. Thanks, Courtney. Appreciate the support. It says very interesting. Wow. There we go. Someone says very interesting. You guys, if you have any questions or comments, like I said, Jeremiah and I are here for a little bit longer, so I want to try to answer any of the questions you have. But
Yeah,
I think,
while the questions are streaming in, right, I actually like to touch on your point of influence. Whichever platform that the brand has the most influence on should be where they need to focus their efforts towards to. Because I might offend a lot of people here, okay, but whatever, I don't give a fuck. Is that Gary V always says that, what, push out 69 pieces of content every day on every single platform. For him, yes, he can do that because he has the capability, he has the team to do it, and he has the support and the resources. But as either a solopreneur or a brand that is starting out to target different mediums, is really to focus on where you have the most influence. Because if, let's say, you're going on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and even TikTok, but most of your audience is coming from LinkedIn, then focus on LinkedIn. You don't have to repurpose on all different platforms. I know repurposing now is like the buzzword, but for myself, I have found that most of my content actually works on LinkedIn. So I'll push out stuff on LinkedIn as a business owner, because a lot of the content I talk about is really about the journey, entrepreneurship, business, content creation. But yes, I also do repurpose that same content for Facebook, but I will change the messaging. So on LinkedIn, I might say like, 5 things I learned waking up 6:30 a.m. every morning, and going to Virgin Active to exercise. But then when I repurpose that for Facebook, I'll just be like, OMG, make that bread, or like dead bot, something like that. But it is the same content. It's just the way it's presented is different. So these 2 platforms I have a lot of influence. So yeah, man, good point that you made, Joe. I like it. Influence.
Thank you so much. I appreciated that. Like I said, we're getting some good feedback from the audience. Thanks so much, Jasmine. Really appreciate you joining us here today. And I think, yes. So to quote the great Simon Kemp, Simon, probably not watching, but I'm going to quote you anyways. So I interviewed Simon, who's very well known in social media space here in Asia. And he told me about the 1.5 rule. And I was like, what is the 1.5 rule? And he mentioned that you should focus on 1.5 channels to begin with. So, for example, he said he focuses the bulk of his efforts on LinkedIn because that's where his audience is. And then he spends maybe half of the time or 50% of the time on Twitter. So he's focusing primarily on those channels because he realizes that's where his audience is. But going back to the 1.5, the bulk of it is spent on LinkedIn, and then a smaller percentage of his time is spent on Twitter, repurposing it there. So once again, I think that's a good rule of thumb, because I think, to your point, this is something I had to address in my class recently as well, because the students were telling me, some of their professors or some of the people who have presented to them, they said, we should focus on omni-channel, we should focus on every single channel. And I was like, unless you have massive resources and a massive team and a massive budget, sure, go ahead. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you are a SME or mid-sized organization who has a limited manpower and resources, it's probably not going to be worth your effort. So going back to what you're saying, focus on where you're going to, make the most bang for your buck in terms of the audience. So where you focus. Hey, Ivan, thanks so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate your support. As always, guys, if you have any questions, do let me know. Drop it in the comments. Awesome. So, no, I think you bring up some really, really good points.
Coffee.
So, funny enough, I've been called out on one of the interviews. It's called a cup of Joe, but I don't drink any coffee. This is pure water. I'm just chugging water.
Okay. In my defense, I am really drinking coffee, so
you like a coffee. So this should be a cup of Maya. That should be the name of it.
Nice. Awesome. But yeah, man, just like what Joe said, if you have any questions, drop it in the comments, so you put us on the spot, keep us on our toes, so that we can go through our brain library and brain gallery to dig out an answer for you, burning answers.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man.
If not, like I said, we get a lot of people who usually watch this post and add a bunch of comments, so happy to answer those as well. I guess, Jeremiah, how can people get in touch with you to find out more about kind of what you do and what you're up to these days?
Okay, you can actually connect with me or find me on LinkedIn, Jeremiah Su. That is my handle. Other social platforms that my company is on would be Instagram, at CVP Group. That's in my name. Maybe, let me change, because all we see now is Maya Chief Cheerleader, and yeah, CVP Group. Okay. You can find us on YouTube as well. But personally, in terms of personal branding, I would say that LinkedIn is the platform my go-to platform, where I talk about things that is separate from my company, because I don't want to be a martyr for my company,
Yes.
Yeah. So actually, you know what, Joe, if you'll be so kind to humor me, now I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to be your
goodness.
I'm going to be your interviewer now. So Joe, can you actually, if you give us 3 tips on content creation specific for LinkedIn, what would be that 3 nuggets of wisdom or insights that you can share with your viewers right now?
Let me go ahead, because I was going to do my shameless plug, but I will go ahead and do it anyways now. Let's see if I can quickly share my screen, because I'm actually developing a course at the very moment talking about how to develop engaging LinkedIn content. Shameless plug. I'll include the link in here a little bit later, but there it goes. So I think a lot of the stuff that you talked about, we talked about in the course. So for me, one of the keys is the psychology of even creating content in the first place. You talk about the concept of selfish versus selfless content. It's difficult to say. So I think basically going back to what you're saying, is it something where it's like a pat on the back type of content for yourself, can make you feel good, but doesn't add any value to the audience? If so, maybe you want to make that 20% of your content ratio, 80% very educational, entertaining, and engaging. So that's not to say you can't talk about your products and services, but you really want to make that the minority in terms of your content proportion you're pushing out. A couple other different things that I use is, I think going back to what you're saying, is understanding the audience. So in the course, I talk about some of the things that we leverage, like, polls and a new tool that I came across. So Answer the Public, which is now, I think, a paid service. We came across another one called AnswerSocrates.com, which is a similar type of platform where you can go in and type in a particular keyword, and then you can see the most commonly asked questions people are asking around that topic. So answersocrates.com. So this, once again, is another way. If you say, okay, I've spoken to my clients, I've spoken to my partners, my colleagues, now what else can I do? That's a cool tool that you can come up with. And another thing that I think we talk about is really getting inspiration outside of your space, because I think this is something I was having a chat with someone yesterday in the financial services space. He says, you know what, a lot of the banks are basically doing the same thing. And I said, yes, you're absolutely right. They're going after, the same audience with the same content. They look the same. They sound the same. So what I talk about in the course is really taking ideas from other types of media they're doing very well. So whether it's, the Wall Street Journal or even Hollywood blockbuster films, see what you can pull from there, because that is going to have much more impact in terms of inspiration rather than following the pack. So those are 3 tips that I think I would like to highlight, and I think it's something that I highlight here in the course. So hopefully that answers the question. Shameless plug is over.
It does, man. It answers the question and more. So,
all right.
Very nice.
Awesome.
Joe.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We should wrap it up. Ivan says, I learned of STDC in relation to content marketing. How relevant? I'm not quite sure what that means, but Ivan, appreciate the support. Awesome. Well, Jeremiah, thank you so much. Thanks for putting me in the spot. Always good to keep me on my toes. So, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you next Thursday, same time, 12 p.m. SGT. So stay safe, everyone. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye, guys.